And welcome to another edition of MyStartup.Live. I am Kevin Allen, and we're broadcasting live here from the Orange County. And I am joined by a friend of mine who I've met at multiple events in Orange County. In fact, that's something that I love about this area is Orange County Tech Happy Hour, run by Lee Decker, none other than the Lee Decker. You should check him out on Twitter and his social media accounts. But Orange County Tech Happy Hour is a great venue for networking with entrepreneurs, with like-minded individuals, professionals in the Orange County area. So Thomas Peters, I have the pleasure of having you on the show.
Thank you.
Thomas is the founder of a business called Undersea Energy, and today we're going to learn about Undersea Energy. Why don't you give us a quick synopsis?
Quick synopsis is we make biodiesel and we use the ocean, the largest resource that we have out here, largest landmass technically. I know that sounds weird being that it's water, but there's a lot of unused space out there, and that's really where the idea originally came from. Original idea also stemmed from I came from the trucking industry and had the benefit, really I say an unfair advantage over some. I got to see a lot of really bad ideas that just didn't work.
I'm sure.
So I took all those bad ideas, took all their business plans, which I also say had great pitches, by the way, and just never was going to work. Never anything large scale enough.
It's kind of an old school network, right? I mean, the trucking industry,
yeah,
right? Nothing really kind of changes that quickly.
No, it's a very archaic, very archaic industry. The only thing that ever makes the trucking industry actually change is litigation and regulations, which in the last just couple years alone, I think they've been hit with more regulations than they have all previous years combined. And on the litigation side, trucking companies themselves, they're not as profitable as they once were. That's the biggest argument. There used to be a lot of money in it. Now that they've really scaled back and they've really hit hard down on the hours of service, how many hours a driver can actually be behind the wheel because of fatigue and big crashes being found that fatigue was a bigger factor than drugs and alcohol were, because for the longest time that was the main focus. Let's keep drugs and alcohol in the industry. Now they're finding it's fatigue that's doing it. So they scaled a lot of the driver hours back and how much drivers get paid. And I actually had a breakdown recently of how much money is actually made after each individual shipment, and it's not much. So right. The industry they're looking for any way to make money and make profit, and fuel is one of their top 3 largest costs. So. And
a lot of things have changed around fueling specifically, in general in transportation.
Right.
But most specifically in the diesel market.
Right. Diesel fuel, actually, I can't tell much about the Tesla. I just saw the Tesla Semi, but diesel, and for that market, it's a must. I don't really see much of a way around it. Those trucks weigh, just based on the economy and how much it costs to ship. A lot of these shippers they're shipping to the max, which is 40 tons. And currently there's no other type of transportation beyond using diesel has enough power to get that amount of weight moved.
A lot of torque to get that.
A lot of torque. I mean, there's some electric trucks coming out, but they don't have the range, and there's also, surprisingly, none of them want to get tested on a hill with 40 tons. So, not to say that the electric isn't going to come out there, but it's far away from what's really going to make an impact. And secondly, even on top of that, you still have the autonomous is probably the biggest thing that you see coming in the industry. The self-driving trucks, they're good. Again, not fully there yet, but hey, and I get brought that question all the time. What happens when the industry goes driverless? Like, well, they still need fuel. So,
well, not only that, but I mean, I think that what you've seen, Thomas, is you've seen an opportunity. You've seen an opportunity in an industry that you knew about, that you had some experience with. Why don't you walk us back to your, experience in the trucking industry in general?
Yeah, when I was first getting into the industry and really starting to understand it, and actually had my feet wet, kind of figured out how it worked, and saw, as we often call it, the good old boy network. That not a lot changes. They were still doing a lot of stuff from before. I was also getting my master's degree at the time, getting my MBA. And
from where?
From USC.
Okay.
And it was about also the time a lot of us remember 2008, 2009, how expensive fuel had gotten during that era. and diesel fuel had been over $6 a gallon at one point. You know, just here in California, we pay more for fuel in general, based on taxes and other reasons. But I saw an opportunity. I knew what biodiesel was coming from the industry. We heard about it. I guess my initial thought, I always say, I guess the industry's thought, but my mind coincided with it, was, you know, it's just that crap they make from corn in Iowa. And that's all I thought it was. I thought it was just junk. And then you hear about people just trying to use used cooking oil, which, by the way, is the most inefficient way you can do it. So that was my original thought or experience with biodiesel. And there's a lot of bad publicity out there, so I didn't really think much of it. And I got to see a lot of these pitches from companies coming in, trying to say, hey, we're gonna sell you, we can sell you biodiesel, and we can do it this way, and we can deliver this much. And so you really start running the numbers, like, okay, how much can you deliver us? How much can you deliver in a week? Oh, we can give you 500 gallons a week. Like, you know, each one of these trucks will run through 100 gallons a day. So you're gonna fuel 5 trucks for one day. And you're talking about companies that have thousands of trucks.
You need a sustainable, long-term production facility that would create the amount of biodiesel that was needed for such a high-demand industry.
Right, and that's where I started getting the idea, and I started researching it, and it was really starting to come from was because again, corn. They use corn to do it. They use, I think, actually soy surpassed corn in the U.S. At least for what we're importing. A lot of soy is used to make it. But again, these are things that are made from food. So a lot of food prices have shot up because corn and soy is used in a lot of things. So you get the skyrocketing food prices. It's always that question I pose to people. Have you noticed how expensive food's gotten the last 5-10 years?
Yeah.
Transportation and fuel are two of the biggest contributors
Thanks
to
to
that.
trucking.
Hey, I mean, like I said, trucking, there's not as much money in it anymore. So as soon as they see their profits declining, going downward, their cost and their their price and the rates have to go up.
So how did you discover that the ocean was going to be your, let's say, your field, your crop?
It's actually, it's during that same era, again, I saw these bad ideas. Like I said, I saw everything from, well, we're gonna make biofuel from weeds and grass clippings and you name it, I saw it. And again, great pitches. They pitched it pretty well.
So where are you seeing some of these pitches at?
They would come to the trucking companies and pitch them.
So they're actually coming to you trying to basically sell you.
Try to sell you. They'd be at conferences. You go to, conventions. There'd be trucking conventions, and you'd see these presentations for these companies that they want to do this, provide biofuel. And at the time, they were in the right place because California they still do. It's gone up and goes up every year. They mandate how much biofuel we have to use on a daily basis, and a lot of it's being blended. Probably when you're going at the pump, I just happened to notice it on Saturday. You're seeing a lot of these flex fuel pumps. When you go to the fuel station, they contain ethanol, which is the biofuel equivalent of to regular unleaded fuel. But more of it's going up, and that's state of California regulations. There's federal ones on there as well, but I just happened to see all these bad ideas, and I live by the beach. I love the beach, and I just happened to be at one night, I was sitting there I just kind of looked out forward, and hey, why is that massive thing sitting in front of me with a lot of wide open space not being utilized at all? And that was the argument we always heard, is that a lot of this stuff comes from corn, and it comes from Iowa, it comes from Nebraska, because they have a lot of open space and land is cheap when you go out there compared to coming out here, where obviously consumption out here and the demand is a lot higher, but it's all made somewhere else. Just having also known a lot of that,
which requires more trucking to get it here.
Right, and a lot of it's coming in on trains, and you talk to them, and their rates have gone up. They have full-on what they call ethanol or biofuel trains, so that's just adding costs.
They have a need too. It's the same need.
Yeah, the trains use it as well, but they have to ship it as well, and just getting trucking industry and the rail industry work side by side in a lot of areas, and just start talking to them. And again, I'm sitting out on the beach one night. I think I was stressed out about school or work or both or something. Just went out there to relax and just kind of look forward. Like, why is this wide open, massive amount of space that's sitting right in front of me that nobody owns, that has more space? There's I don't know the exact number. 70-something% of the Earth is covered by water, and the ocean's equivalent to how much percentage of the Earth coverage. it's just not being used.
Well, and now, not to mention, California has one of the biggest coastlines of any state in the United States.
And that's really where the idea stemmed from. I got to see all those bad ideas that didn't work. So I said, okay, and I kind of got those down like, hey, this does not work. So I'm not going to do that. Thanks, guys, for doing the research for me. So I had this wide open ocean sitting here, and I'm like, why isn't this being used? And I would start, like all of us, we'd go on to Google and we start looking for things, and I couldn't find anybody doing it. I found stuff where they were trying to farm like clams and oysters or something out there using nets. I'm like, okay, there's something going on out there, and obviously the government will allow it. They'll allow you to do something out there. So I just started, okay, came down with different ideas. Let me put something out. Let me put something on top of the water, which was similar to the NASA Omega project that occurred, way back when, that failed. Like, okay, so I had that advantage. Even NASA couldn't figure it out. But what they were doing, they were trying to put these, I don't even know what they're called. They're floating on top of the water in the ocean. They were using the power from the sun, and they would actually come underwater and, kind of, in my opinion, overcomplicated the whole process.
And they were actually trying to mine the same thing?
Yeah, they're trying to use algae to make biofuel. And great idea, and a lot of it, there was a lot of bonuses, I think, that came from that project. Again, it was called the Omega Project. A lot of good things came out, and it kind of, like most things NASA, I think sometimes we don't realize a lot of how much domestic things we get from NASA research. So I attribute that. It's just, they did some research and, again, found out what worked and what didn't.
Well, so you're figuring if NASA's trying it, there's something here.
Yeah,
there's some sort of opportunity that's not being exploited.
Yeah, and algae biofuel was referenced by Jimmy Carter when he was president. So it's been known for a long time. It's kind of like solar. Solar is a big deal right now. And, that technology's been around for 50 years. Same with wind power. It's just now it's becoming more efficient and more economical to actually implement it.
So tell us how you're starting your sustainable model to capture that ocean algae and turn it into biodiesel.
Yeah, I had a lot of blunders. I mean, we could talk about all the methods I tried that didn't work. Thank God I found them.
Home lab.
Yeah, I tried. I even did stuff out in the ocean, and I didn't leave anything. I brought it all back, and nothing floating out there. But original idea again was like, okay, let's all this wide open space. Let's do it on top of the water, and let me figure something out. I'm like, okay. Then, like you said, California's got some of the most beautiful coastline, but we've also got some of the most expensive coastline. And I was just thinking for myself, if I have beachfront property, I don't want to see some massive apparatus out there.
So you want it to be mildly hidden.
If I'm spending millions of dollars, I'm not going to look at some ugly biofuel growing something out there. So I'm like, okay, that's out. Can't be on top of the water. Plus, as massive as the ocean is, somebody will manage to hit one of these things. As much space. There'll be some jet skier that's drunk or something and hits it. So we got to take that out. That's got to get out of there. Then you got to stay out of the shipping lanes, everything. So, okay, so that's where I really came up with the idea. Let me put it under the water because therefore nobody can see it. It's not disrupting anything. Nobody can steal one. I mean, you can, but good luck finding them. So and plus, if you put it underwater, you have you have more. There's a lot of top space, but there's also once you go under, based on the depth, there's just more massive amounts of, there's just more massive amounts of unused space sitting under the water, and plus, you can suspend them under the water, and they stand there and they're more freestanding, which I had to come up with the method how to make them neutrally buoyant, which took some time, but figure that out.
So you've come up with the means of capturing your ocean algae, which is now you deem it to be, what's it called?
The process?
No, the actual. This big ball in the ocean.
Orcosphere. And the Orca piece is actually an acronym, Oceanic Reactor for Commercialized Algae. So
could we pull up that? I think we have an image of the Orcosphere we can show. There we go.
That's I always say that's the smallest one, which is true. The smallest one that I have. It's a scaled down model. There's pieces not connected to it because I just don't ever show pictures of what certain things look like. And it's also the only one I was, as physically strong as I am, that was the only one I was able to move on land.
And imagine that in the open ocean is just like a dot, really.
Yeah,
in the span of the open ocean, it's just
I was doing the math myself, and I had a friend from MIT do it as well. And I said, okay, I figured it would take this amount just to make an impact with the local trucking industry in Southern California. How much available ocean space is there compared to how much I would actually use? And it's like a dot and many zeros, and then finally a 1. So you're not really using much space at all.
Yeah. But you're able to really provide a sustainable model of producing biodiesel fuel for trucking, and obviously charge them market price, but there's profit there.
Yeah, again, that was the model. Is that the problem? The biggest issue that the biofuel industry was making, or facing, so to say, is they couldn't find enough. They couldn't get enough of the base fuel cheap enough to be competitive with petroleum. Because if you're not cheaper than the petroleum version, who already has an infrastructure set up, there's no incentive to use
why?
it.
Then it's a why.
Then why would I use it?
Why would I
yeah,
use
why
it?
am I going
to?
And then that was another issue. That again, I had the luxury of companies coming in selling these ideas. Plus trucking companies don't pay what you see at the pump. They're mass consumers. So it might say $4 at the pump. They're really paying $3. So you got that to work with already. So we'd have companies that, it's $4 at the pump, and, oh, we could sell you biofuel for $5 a gallon. That was common. They thought that was okay. And no, it's not. Plus, they could only bring you so much, or they'd want the killer was they want you to come to.
Plus, then you're still dealing with 2 vendors.
Right. Well, they want you to come to them to get it. Like, we're not sending a truck out a route to get fuel. Sorry. That's not how it works. Again, driver hours, the hours of service being the biggest new regulation in the industry. They're not going to spend time going to get fuel when there's a fuel station rather at their terminal already, or across the street, or down the street.
Thomas, one thing I love about this whole story is you thought so big. I mean, your mindset from the beginning was so massive, right? I mean, you're taking on essentially the petroleum industry in a way. Not that you're competing directly with it, but you're taking on a big competitor, right?
Yeah, they're so big that
and you're doing it with a technology that's, and no offense, it's not proven. In other words, not a lot of people know about it. It's not mainstream, so it's not proven yet in people's minds. What was your feeling going into that, thinking like, this is my business. I've created this. I'm going to live in this world now for the next decade. Yeah,
funny story. I don't have a science background. If you would have told me this X amount of years ago, I'd have probably laughed. Like, I'm not going to do that. I have no interest. I don't know anything about it. So yeah, just it always goes back to I did a lot of my own research on this and came up to that conclusion that the biofuel industry, for whatever reason, they love to overcomplicate things. Because really, making biodiesel itself is a lot like brewing beer. If you ask one of the guys that have been in the industry for a while, it's this massive, it's this process that's really hard to do, and it's very time consuming. It's like when I started researching it, and the first time I did it and tested it to be sure it worked, like damn, that's kind of like how. And I never even brewed beer, but it seemed pretty similar. And I had a friend that is a brewmaster come over, so oh yeah, that is a lot like brewing beer. I didn't know that either. So.
Other than the fact that it's mildly flammable.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's some alcohol there you probably set on fire.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I came to that conclusion. It's really not that hard. And it's just, again, I think people are trying to come up with too many ways to make something that was this technology, again, it's been around for a long time. It's been known. It's just there's never been a way to make it competitive with the petroleum. So again, that was just the idea that you have to make it worth their while to use it. And everyone wants clean energy right now. It's a big deal, and that's part of the reason I really got into it. I think we all seen the writing on the wall that that's the way things are going. But you still got to be cost effective.
But did you pursue this because you knew that sustainable energy was going to be necessary, or did you really kind of start it because you're like, I see all these trucks using all this fuel, I want it to be more sustainable?
I think there's a few reasons. I mean, like I was alluding to earlier, I'm a big fan of the ocean. I like clean air. I like my environment, my air being clean. I've been lucky enough to, I don't know if you call it lucky, but I've been to places like Mumbai and Beijing. That air is terrible. Is
the whole area.
Yeah.
In the water.
Yeah. Water, the air, just everything. It's just gross. Is the best way to put it. Just dirty, and I don't want my environment to be like that. Where I live, we live in Southern California. I think we all have some kind of hippie in us in some way or another. So I want all that sort of stuff too. But again, I saw the writing on the wall, and that's the way society is really the one that's pushing it the most. That we want clean energy, and we want you know, another thing is like we were talking about petroleum industries, the oil industry. Nobody has a favorable opinion of them. Let's just be honest about that. Nobody likes them. No one likes giving them money. Nobody wants to see them get bigger. Nobody else wants to hear about them complaining that our profits are down. Yet we see their public numbers get released and they're making record profit.
Oh, they've made profit ever since they've ever existed. They've never lost money.
Yeah,
the
they
petroleum
never
has
will.
never lost money.
Yeah, so technically, yeah, I can't compete with them. If I do, it's probably not even within my lifetime. But that's never been the idea to begin with. Is there's with the growing consumption rates, and a big reason is think of how much online shopping is going on now. There's more of it occurring than ever, and it's only getting bigger by the day. Therefore, it requires diesel vehicles because somebody's going to deliver that to your house.
Right.
You know, UPS, FedEx are obviously the biggest ones now. Those are diesel-run vehicles.
Right.
So you're going to have more and more of those coming into your neighborhood. So do you really want a dirty, burning trucks coming more and more into your neighborhood?
I never even thought about it that way.
I don't want those dirty things coming in there, idling and everything else.
And let this be an inspiration to all the entrepreneurs out there that if you are not happy with your environment, or you're not happy with your industry, or you're not happy with how the business you're working in is going, that means an opportunity for you to start your own business. And here's something that Thomas did. He's in the trucking business. He saw an opportunity, and he capitalized on that thought, stuck with it, and now here you are today.
Yeah.
How long has this sort of project been?
It's been going on for years now. I think it wasn't until more the last year that I really started realizing, like, oh wow, this actually could work. Came to that realization. I mean, I always knew that there was a market for it. That I could always sell biofuel. I mean, it's fuel. It's not like you're ever going to not use fuel. Everybody needs it. Consumption's going up, and just even the last year, I think I've really come to the realization more. Obviously, I'm starting small. You can't don't be trying to conquer the world all at once, and that's why I really is just stuck to the local markets right now. But it's a global opportunity because, as talked about, the Chinas and the Indias are spending a lot of money on biofuel technology right now because it's a society issue for them because of their pollution, that if they stay under current rates of how much they're polluting based on how much their population is growing, they can't sustain themselves in the future, and they're well aware of it.
So have you gone to other markets and considered expanding or done some due diligence, let's say, to expanding your business beyond Southern California?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been there. I've done some research. I've talked to companies out there. I've had some companies actually have some interest. Like, you'd actually do a lot better if you brought your technology and you came to China. The government would pay you right now to produce biodiesel because they need it. But I think where I knew I was on the right track too is I'm not in it just for the money. I think a lot of us heard a recent presentation at an event and it really validated what I'm doing is don't do it for the money, do it for the right reasons. And that's why I've always kept to the mindset that I'm doing it because I want the clean air, I want cheaper food, I want a more sustainable future. That's really my main what's driving me to keep doing this. Yeah, the money's great. There's not money in it yet, but there will be, no doubt. But that's not why I'm doing it. There's a lot of bigger factors involved. And when I was thinking big, I wasn't just thinking, this. I think we all heard it. We all have those friends that are always, I'm doing this business, and it's more like a get-rich-quick scheme, as I call them. But that's not what this is about. This is about further looking ahead, see the big picture, see what's coming, and frankly, I want to be ahead of it. I want to be the industry leader and the one that made enough of this biofuel to make a difference, and was ready when Amazon's buying their own fleet. They've already put the note out there that they want to use biofuel, specifically biodiesel again, because they're going to be hauling the weight that an unleaded engine can't handle. So, just seeing the way that Amazon's obviously going, and just jumped on that opportunity to really try to make that difference and be the one to do it. Because at the moment, there's no biofuel leader, no biodiesel specific leader out there.
Not that anybody's ever heard of.
No, I mean, we got the clean energy. Obviously, Elon Musk I would say is the biggest one because of Tesla and the solar city and what he's doing there. But what I'm doing is completely different. I'm trying to be more realistic in what's really coming, and that's always been what's inspired me to keep going. Because I think that's where the passion I have for it is come from. And fuel I want the trucking industry to succeed. Yes, they're archaic. Yes, they do a lot of old school things, but overall I want them to succeed because the reality is they employ a lot of people.
A lot of people, over 1 million probably.
Yeah, the industry, it's one of the biggest industries in the entire U.S.
And a lot of independent truck owners too. So actually, from a standpoint of having your own business, there's a lot of business owners that are just truckers. They have a fleet of trucks, or they have one truck, and they make money. They make a living, delivering goods. Yeah,
and your fuel, how much you're spending on your fuel for those owner operators? Again, that's just a single guy that owns this truck. A lot of them are excited about Uber Freight now, but that industry is also. I think the next step in that industry is really automation, where a guy can own his own truck and go on and cuts the middleman out. So I think that would be the biggest change.
I think not only that, but it's the efficiency of using multiple technologies to have a more efficient road map and where you're driving, and if you need to go fuel up, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the other areas that's really inspired me to keep doing this, was just knowing a lot of owner-operators and guys that own their own trucks. The fuel is what makes or breaks them. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of maintenance costs involved. I mean, the two biggest maintenance costs in that industry is tires and batteries. And the other is insurance is high. It's a lot higher now. So obviously those are more like the fixed costs. Those are nothing you can do about those. Tires are going to wear down, batteries are going to go dead, and you're going to need new ones. But the fuel is the one that you really have a little bit more control over, whereas a lot of them are now even slowing down. They figured out if I go from 65 to 60, even down to 55, which even drop it a little bit below that, they're finding out the fuel consumption is a lot better. And that, yeah, you spend a little bit more time, but when you actually do the math, it's not that much. Right. Not compared to how much money.
Minutes on whatever.
Yeah, like I did math on one driver per day, your average truck driver that's driving the local market, and they slow down by like 5 miles.
I think we all need to slow down.
It's like 8 miles. It's like 8 minutes.
We all need to slow down on the road.
Oh, we all do.
No reason you need to go so fast in your car or your truck. I think one thing we've learned here today, Thomas, is your persistence on your business model. You've definitely stuck with it. You're going against a behemoth. You're doing it with technology that's very new. You're doing it in an innovative way that is, that's telling its own story, using the orchospheres and the ocean. And we could go into the science of it, but I wouldn't understand it. I don't think that many of our viewers would understand it. So, Thomas, one thing that too is always impressed me is your keeping with your physical shape and you've done some marathons and some triathlons. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, when we say marathon, there's swim versions. I am not a runner. I'm not
a long swim in the ocean.
Yeah, like last weekend, and we were just talking before this, that I did the Newport peer-to-peer 2-mile swim. Did that. I've done 4 triathlons this year so far. Did 2 other Coronado and Huntington Beach Pier swim. Actually, we're just talking 9 weeks. I'll be doing the Pacific triathlon, which is in Laguna Beach, and then the week after that, it's doing the Malibu triathlon. So, yeah, it's definitely something I got to stick to because I'm 6'5" and I'm not a small person, so I am not built for triathlons by any means. So it's one of those deals. The same thing like what I'm doing now, business-wise. I don't not do something because it's hard or because you just use that. I do it because it is hard, because can't tell you how many triathlons I've done and guys see me in the transition area, especially after the swim, that I was a water polo player, which technically I am built for, if you know that sport. But I can't tell you how many times I've had guys in the transition areas like, holy crap, and then literally in their words, like, wow, you made me take a step back and realize that I looked at you and I thought you were going to be the last guy to finish this entire race, and I get out of the swim and you're ahead of me. So they said it was a humbling experience. And I said, that's great. That's part of the reason I'm here.
Well, surprise your competitor, inspire yourself, get involved in your industry, know your customers. Stick with it. It's a grind, and Thomas has been grinding it out, but he knows it's going to be something that's going to make money and be a sustainable business. How do we find you online?
Easiest way is the website, Undersea.energy. Yes, those domains exist. So Undersea.energy and @Undersea Energy. I think I'm on every
Twitter,
social media.
Instagram,
yeah, they're all there.
Actually, we have it on screen there. Thomas, I really want to thank you. You're inspiring me to live the sustainable life. And even though it's just about biofuels, it's about sustainability. We want a beautiful world in the future.
Yes, we do.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on MyStartup.Live.